Hello, welcome to the second session of CSEET paper 4 part B, presentation and communication skills. I am Panamaman. Now let's have a look at the paper 4. It has part A and part B. Part A is current affairs handled by Ramchand sir and part B would be handled by me. Part B basically is for Viva Voice for 30 marks. Now what do we do today? Today we have a glance of the syllabus and then understand what listening skill is, then know the difference between monologue and dialogue and understand monologue in detail and have a couple of exercises because the best way to learn is by doing things. So we'll glance at the syllabus and then we'll understand listening skills in detail. Then we'll know the difference between monologue and dialogue, understand monologue a bit in detail and then have two exercise because we believe in learning by doing. Now under listening skill we have monologue, dialogue, grammar and vocabulary. Today the second session we are focusing only on monologue. Before we understand what monologue is, we need to understand what is listening, because we assume that we know the meaning of listening or we always listen well. Going back to monologue, monologue is a talk by someone. So anything we hear is different from anything we listen to. That is why I want to discuss with you the difference between hearing and listening. As I told you, we take it for granted that we know how to listen to. No, we know to hear, but we may not know to listen to. Any sound or noise which we get to hear is hearing. Any noise or sound to which we pay attention to listen to is listening. To understand listening better, let's understand different types of listening. There are active listening, passive listening, selective listening, critical listening and attentive listening. Now for a while you ignore this monologue and dialogue which is written here. So what is active listening or comprehensive listening? When we must understand every word spoken by the person, whether it's a monologue or a dialogue or a chat or a movie or whatever it is, if we have to understand every word, if we have to understand the tone with which it is spoken, if we have to understand the underlying meaning of what is spoken, we must practice active or comprehensive listening. What is active or comprehensive listening? When you pay attention to every word, to the tone, to the vocabulary, to the grammar and the objective of the person who is speaking. The next is passive listening, which we do most of the time, maybe in a lecture or in a movie, where we do not pay attention to everything, every word spoken or to the tone or whatever. So what happens here is we miss out important information. When you miss out important information, the purpose of the conversation or the monologue is lost. So it's not a good idea to have passive listening. The third is selective listening. Again here what happens is we listen to only those part of the conversation or the dialogue or the monologue which we feel is interesting or which we like. Like for example in a lecture, 1 hour session, you would listen to the story or the anecdote which the teacher narrates, but you may stop listening to the subject matter as such. It's a very common thing which happens. So what happens here is we are at loss, the audience is at loss, the listener is at loss for the simple reason that what we like to listen may not be actually useful for our exams or a profession. So selective listening is not a great idea. Then we have some, and all these are types of listening which we practice during a monologue. Then there is something called critical listening. Critical listening is appropriate during dialogue for the simple reason you are allowed to interrupt, question, or give your point of view or opinion or debate. So you need to critically listen to whatever the other person says and engage in the dialogue. And attentive listening or emphatic listening or reflective listening again is very useful in dialogue, because you reflect, you pay attention to what he says or she says, and then immediately give your point of view. Whereas in monologue, you need to listen till the end of the monologue and then get into answering or clarifying the doubt. Hence, active listening becomes the listening type for monologue. Now, let's understand what is the difference between monologue and dialogue. Irrespective of the lecture you hear is monologue or dialogue, or irrespective of whatever it is, we need to understand that our listening skills should be great. Okay. What's the difference between monologue and dialogue? Monologue, mono means one, dialogue, di means two. So a monologue is a long talk by a person, or speech by a person without any interruption or response by the listener. Whereas dialogue is between two or more people. It's a conversation between two or more people, and there would be interaction and interruption. A monologue could be written or spoken or both. In a monologue, when a person delivers a monologue, the person who delivers the monologue must be focused while writing or speaking a monologue, as it requires a concentrated flow of thought to express what is in one's mind. Communication is something where the speaker has to have clarity with what he is speaking, so that the listener understands the way the speaker wants the listener to understand. So if the listener has to understand what the speaker is saying, it has to be focused and it should be a concentrated flow of thought. So monologue should be a focused and concentrated flow of thought which expresses one's mind. Some of the famous examples for monologue are Mark Antony's speech in Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare, or any speech by leaders, or sessions by lecturers, or advice by elders, or report by researchers. So if you notice, all these are one-way communication. He spoke, nobody spoke in between. When leaders make speech, nobody talks in between. During session, most of the time lecturers don't allow you to disturb in between. When elders advise, we are not allowed to speak back. And the report by research, we read without interruption. So a monologue is a one-way communication. Now, we always believe in doing things to learn better. When we practice certain things, we perform better. So I thought of having two exercises today. One would be a simple monologue and the other one not so simple monologue. Now, why should we have this exercise? We know that any communication or listening or speaking is both art and science. Now, why are they called art and science? Art is something which becomes perfect with practice. It could be singing, it could be dancing, it could be painting, it could be speaking, it could be oratory. When we practice over a period of time, we become perfect. So it is an art. Same with listening or speaking or communication. When we practice more often, we become perfect in that. Hence, even that is called an art. Now, why is it a science? Because any communication has a particular flow, has a particular pattern. Since it has a pattern, there is an input and output. We refer to it as a science. So, to make ourselves perfect, let us have an activity where I read out something, where we have a monologue. You please pay attention to what I read. It's a monologue, and then at the end let's answer certain questions. Now there is distraction. The moment I told you to pay attention to what I would be reading, you probably started paying attention, and then these two sentences came in between which distracted you, and then these pictures came up which distracted you. That's how it is. Nobody would create a very silent, quiet atmosphere for you to listen to any conversation or a monologue, either during the examinations or the interview or in your profession. Hence, you must get used to distraction, yet listen to the message or the monologue or the dialogue and try to answer the questions. Whatever we learn in any lecture, be it this or any lecture, please remember whatever we learn, 50% is for our examination and other 50% is for the profession, which we would be practicing after the examination. All of us study well, prepare hard so that we do well in the examination and then do very well in a profession. So let us practice some of the activities so that it becomes easy for you to carry on with your exams and profession. Now pay attention to the first monologue. Summer season is here. Days and nights are getting warmer. So we must take care of our health. We must drink lots of water and fresh juice. We should not eat fried food or spicy food. Eating well is living well. We must also save water. We should not waste water. We must also pour water to small plants. We must keep some water to the birds too. So if you paid attention, we had two ideas, one related to the other, and it was simple. Now let us see if you can answer the questions. The first question, what season is here? Any answer? Yes, very simple. Summer season is here. The next question, see if you can answer the next question. What's getting warmer? Probably most of you got it right. Days and nights are getting warmer. So go to the third question. We must take care of dash. Yes, we must take care of our health. Next question. What should we drink in summer? Yes, you are right. Water and juice. The fifth question. What should we not eat in summer? Probably got it right. Fried or spicy food. Okay, let's go to the next question. Dash well is living well. Yes. Eating well is living well. Next. We must also dash water. Yes, we must also save water. The next question. We must also pour water to, yeah, you got it right, small plants. Do we have one more question? Yes, we must keep some water for the dash too. Yes, the answer is birds. Now, if you have noticed, most of you would have answered all the questions without error for two reasons. One is it's a very short monologue and it's a very common topic, a very simple topic. Even if you had missed listening to certain points, if you are not an active listener, if you are not a comprehensive listener, if you were distracted, yet you could answer some of the questions properly because it is a very general and known topic. But in the examination, it need not always be so simple. In your profession too, it need not be so simple. So, let's try a slightly different, a slightly complicated monologue, the second one. So, are we ready for the second one? It's not very complicated, but not as simple or as familiar with as the first one. Are we ready? Yeah. Now again there's a distraction, doesn't matter. Shall I start with the second example, second monologue? Yeah. What is your reason for being? According to the Japanese, everyone has an ikigai, what a French philosopher might call a raison d'être. Some people have found ikigai, while others are still looking, though they carry it within them. Our ikigai is hidden deep inside each of us, and finding it requires a patient search. According to those born on Okinawa, the island with the most centenarians in the world, our ikigai is the reason we get up in the morning. Our ikigai has 4 aspects: passion, mission, occasion, profession. Passion and mission are what we love. Mission and vocation are what the world needs from us. And profession and vocation is what we get paid for. And our profession and passion are what we are good at. Okay, now I think we are ready for the questions. If you have noticed, I began with a very slow speed, and towards the end I increased the speed of the monologue for the simple reason that you may get used to a new speed. Now I have a few questions based on the monologue. Shall we? Yes. What is your reason for being called in Japanese? I am very sure all of you got it. Yes, ikigai. The second question, what's the nearest word for ikigai in French? This is a different word, so you have paid attention. Yes, raison d'être. The third question, which is the island mentioned in the monologue? I read out the name of an island. Yes, Okinawa, an island in Japan. The fourth question, in which country do you find this island? Yes, Japan. What are the 4 concepts which ikigai comprises of? Let me see how many of you really remember the 4. Yes, what are they? Passion, mission, vocation, and profession. The one who typed has made a mistake, doesn't matter. Passion, mission, vocation, profession. I'm sorry for the mistake here. Yeah. The next question, dash is what passion and mission give you. Yeah, what's that? What you love. The next question, what does the world need? The world needs are, yes, you almost got it, mission and occasion. Fine, let's go to the next one. Profession and occasion can get you, yes, that's what we work for, paid for. The next question, you are good at your, yes, you're right, profession and passion. So, which was easier? I feel the first one was easier for the simple reason it is short and it is a very, very general topic where one could answer with common sense. But the second one was not as simple as the first one, and it is not something known by everyone. So please get used to listening to monologues or listening to readings or a lecture on topics which are not very familiar with, and make it a habit of noting down the important points if you are allowed to, either a mental note or a written note, so that you will be able to answer very well in your Viva votes. Now, before I wrap up, we will just have a conclusion slide. So, what did we discuss today? We just understood what the syllabus is. We also understood it is part B of paper 4, and we also understood the Viva votes would be for 30 marks, and the questions would be on communication and listening skill, Under listening, you would be made to listen to monologue and dialogue and grammar and vocabulary. We take up written and oral skills later. We just talk only about listening. So we have monologue and dialogue, and the questions would be also on grammar and vocabulary. Today, if you have noticed, I did not ask any question on grammar or vocabulary for the simple reason, let us learn to comprehend the idea and answer the idea. It's a very simple activity. The questions were not on grammar or vocabulary. That would be taken up later. This was just to make you familiar with grasping the idea and a couple of terms here and there. Then we also understood the difference between hearing and listening, because we generally take it for granted that we know what listening is. Listening is a very conscious effort, whereas hearing is an unconscious effort. So what is required by you, the skill which you have to hone or sharpen or improve, is your listening skill. So we understood the difference between hearing and listening, right? Then we also discussed the difference between monologue and dialogue. Mono, single; dialogue, two or more. It's a simple way of remembering. And today we concentrated only on monologue. Dialogue would be done later. Monologue, we had two activities, two monologues read out, which you had to listen actively, comprehensively, and you had to answer the questions. And I'm very sure most of you could answer all the questions. To go ahead gradually, the first one was a very simple activity with simple question. The second one was not as simple as the first one. Now, before we wind up, we just have a couple of questions for self-assessment. You should be able to answer what a monologue is, and then you should also be able to give an example for monologue. You may write your own monologue, or you may download and understand how a monologue is written. Thank you. We'll meet you in the third session on dialogue.